Most people think the middle class is the safe path. You've got a good house, maybe a nice car, go on a few nice holidays a year. But what if I told you that the habits that make us comfortable are also the ones that are keeping us stuck? So in this video, I'm going to be talking you through the 15 middle class habits that are quietly stopping you from ever getting financially free and what you can do differently. Most people don't get paid what they're worth. The fear of knowing their true value and their market value has caused them to accept this. Now, employers count on that, and a 3% raise sounds fair. But until you realise that inflation is 5%, you're actually losing ground and going backwards. Now, job loyalty comes with what's called a loyalty tax. So, staying too long in one company can mean you're underpaid by maybe 10 or 15% compared to the market rate. If you want to move up financially, you need to be brave and move on from your job. You've got to know your value, you've got to document your impact and ask. The only times I have achieved a double-digit change in my salary is when I qualified as an accountant and then when I moved jobs. Now, working hard pays the bills, working smart builds wealth. So time is a currency that we all have. I mean, it's the same whether you're rich or poor. You all have 24 hours in a day. Now, wealthy people use leverage, time, money, systems, and people. And that multiplies their output without multiplying their effort. Now, a simple time example is when you invest £500 a month for 30 years and you could, at 7%, get £1 million. You're not working hard here, you're putting money aside every month, and time is doing all the hard work for you. Money leverage is when you're borrowing or using investor capital, for example, a buy-to-let property or a business loan, and that earns more than its interest cost. System leverage is when essentially you use processes or technology, and that works for you. Automations, handles sales, handles accounting, or various other content while you sleep. People leverage is when you lead teams or hire skills so value grows without your direct hours. Now, that's whether it's staff, freelancers, or partnerships. And this leverage turns your time into something that earns even when you don't. It's really the difference between working in the system and owning the system. The third habit is buying more than you can afford. So a couple of rules here. Consumer finance sites talk about cars should not really exceed 15% of annual income. Mortgages shouldn't really exceed 28% of gross income, which is the front end ratio rule. And lastly, debt to income ratio. So this is your total debt repayments. So your mortgages, any debt, consumer debt you have, any student loans, etc., divided by your monthly income. And this should stay below 35%. Ideally, 30% is healthier. And this is essentially what the FCA and various consumer credit rating guidance measures people on. Now, the classic one is spending before saving. Now, middle class mindset is I'll save what's left. This doesn't work. The wealthy mindset is I'll spend what's left. So this first came about in the richest man of Babylon. Save 10% of all you earn, pay yourself first, and automate 10 to 20% of your income into saving. Now, technically, people would argue that unless you have a business, you're actually paying yourself last because you're paying taxes first on your salary. Robert Kiyosaki, who was the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, took this even further. He argued that essentially you should pay yourself first before your bills, and then that will create pressure on you to earn more to cover those bills. But to be honest, for most people, I think that's it's just a major win just to even simply automate and save money over the long term. This will have a massive impact on people's financial freedom if they just did the basics and they managed to automate that 10 to 20%. You won't ever miss what you don't see, and as you get paid more, you can automate more to go into your savings, but you will notice it growing. Now, wealth isn't built on willpower. It's very, very hard to do this through willpower alone, but it is built on systems, so you have to automate this to help you. So number 5 is effectively relying on one source of income from one employer. Now, if something happens, job loss, redundancy, illness, you're exposed. So the average millionaire has 7 income streams. That might sound extreme, but you start with a few, start with your main job and something else. Number 6 is using debt to maintain lifestyle. Credit cards, buy now, pay later are the middle class safety net that turns into a trap eventually. If your debt grows faster than your income, you're consuming faster than you produce. The average UK personal debt is around £34,000 per adult, according to the Money charity, and this means that the average person's money leaves faster than it arrives. Use debt for creation, not consumption, for assets that earn, not materialistic items. You can only control what you measure. If you don't measure, you can't control it. And most people know what their salary is, but they're not what their spending is. It's like running a business without a profit and loss. Track several things every month. Your income, your outgoings, your net worth, and if you can, your cash flow from your assets. Now, your net worth is your assets minus your liabilities, and this tells you if you're actually moving forward. Now, forget credit scores. They measure how good you are at borrowing, not how good you are at building. Now, cash flow is what you need to aspire to. You could pay off your mortgage and have an asset on paper, but it doesn't earn you income. You need to aspire to have assets that create income and cash flow for you, and then track that and increase it slowly. This could be investments, dividends, interest, various other kind of businesses, but essentially anything that creates you income, and you want to track that measure and see it come up. And then eventually you can start seeing how it starts to offset your core expenses, and that kind of tracks towards becoming financially free. Number 8 is not actually investing. So most of us know we should invest. We just don't act on it. We tell ourselves we'll start later once we have a bit more money, but we hold back. We lose the compounding time every single day. And it's not a laziness. It's just a lack of tools, clarity, confidence really stops us. Now, it's quite hard when you're living almost paycheck to paycheck to delay gratification and invest. So financial freedom doesn't come from your own income. It comes from your asset column, your portfolio income, and your passive income. Number 9 is ignoring financial literacy. Now, money is one subject we use daily, but we're never taught about it. Tax, compounding, debt, inflation. If you don't understand them, you'll always pay more to someone who does. Financial literacy isn't about becoming an expert, it's about understanding the basics. Now, if you want to learn a bit more about these, perhaps read a few books on the matter. Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is another good one. That's teaching you around cash flow and assets. Or lastly, another good option is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. Now, this is more of a modern personal finance and automation book. All three great books. But there's plenty of free tools, plenty of free YouTube channels, courses, go to the library. Basic financial literacy is something we could get relatively easily. Number 10 is around the illusion of happiness. Now, buy things that can bring joy but not happiness. Mary Kondo is a famous Japanese minimalist who teaches this, that joy is fine, but endless consumption is a bit shallow. We need to spend intentionally. Less will often give you more, and happiness comes from direction, not things. Number 11 is living without purpose. So, many middle-class workers grind year after year after year without ever asking, why am I doing this? What is my goal? Money is the fuel, but for what journey? If you don't define it, the lifestyle will define you. Have some sort of vision board, have some sort of goal, figure out what it is you're working for, and be inspired. Number 12 is the wrong environment and the wrong crowd. Now, if everyone around you spends to impress, you will too. If your circle talks about investments, ideas, and assets, that becomes the norm. Most middle class grow up around people who mean well, but think small about money, or aren't financially literate themselves. To grow, you have to step into circles that challenge you and put you out of your comfort zone. Number 13 is around tax. Now, middle class people pay the highest taxes because they earn one kind of income, earned income. Business owners, investors pay less because they use structure and strategy. They get advice, business deductions, ISAs, pensions, capital gains. The government taxes labour. If you want to pay less tax, own more assets, not hours. Number 14 is a lack of delayed gratification. Now, instant gratification feels amazing, but it's a silent killer of wealth. You've got to practice delayed gratification. Save, invest, compound. Save, invest, compound. Now, delayed gratification is something that I have practiced for many years. It's one of the key reasons why I saved my first £100,000 and why I'm going to continue to keep growing and investing. So number 15 is around your health and well-being. Now, if you don't protect your health and well-being, little else matters. If you're tired, exhausted, and you can't work, then what's the point of working? So you've got to focus on your health like your investments, because your well-being and your health matters more than anything. So there you go. Breaking out of the middle class isn't about luck or hustling. It's about self-awareness, because every one of these habits is built just on comfort and not your intentions. Ask yourself why you're going to do this, not just what you do. Because once you understand your why, you can finally choose your different habits, because habits that build freedom instead of just maintaining comfort. Now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.